In this video, I will introduce C++ and we will write our first C++ program. I'll also introduce the necessary tools to work with C++ on a Mac, including G++ and the Sublime Text Editor. By the end of this video, we'll have our first program which prints out the text, "Hello World." Before we begin working with C++, let me give a brief introduction to the terminal. In particular, I'll be talking about the Mac terminal. One of the great things about Mac operating systems is that it comes bundled with the terminal already. To open this terminal, we can go ahead and use Spotlight to search for it. Just go ahead and type in terminal. Note that the terminal window appears similar to what you might expect from Linux. The terminal has this idea of the working directory. The working directory is similar to what you might expect in Finder. It's basically the folder you're currently in, and you can view everything else under that folder. In the terminal, we can go ahead and type pwd for print working directory, and this will tell us the working directory we're currently in. In Finder, this is the equivalent of being in the users/Aaron folder. So what I expect is that every file, every folder available here will also be available in this current working directory. To confirm this, we can type ls to list the subfiles and subfolders. Notice that every folder here matches the folders in Finder. Again, this is an indication that my working directory is the users/Aaron directory and contains all of these subfolders. We used pwd to print the working directory and ls to list all subfiles. Let's go ahead and create a folder using mkdir, which is short for make directory, and we'll call this a test directory. Note that in Finder, this new test directory was created. So again, the working directory in the terminal actually affects the file system on my Mac. Let's go ahead and change our working directory in the terminal to this test directory using the cd command, which is short for change directory. This is equivalent to double-clicking and opening this file from Finder. I'm going to go ahead and clear this terminal window to make it easier to read. We might ask ourselves, what would be the expected output when I type ls to list the subfiles? If we look in Finder, we don't see any files or folders under this test directory. So I expect the same when I type ls in the terminal, and I indeed see that no files were listed. Let's go ahead and print the working directory to confirm that we're in the users/Aaron/test folder. And indeed we are. The important commands for the terminal, again, are pwd, ls, and cd. pwd prints the working directory, ls lists subfiles, and cd allows us to change folders. Perhaps I want to go up a folder, so I can go ahead and use cd ... This allows me to change my directory up one folder. And so I'm back at the Aaron directory, users/Aaron. Perhaps I now want to remove my test folder that I just temporarily created. I will go ahead and use the rm command and list the test folder here. Note that I have this flag here, -r, saying that I am deleting a directory. Let me show you what happens if I don't have that -r. So I'll go ahead and recreate the test directory. If I attempt to remove this without the -r option, I get an error from the rm program saying that test is a directory. So again, when removing directories, you need a specific option, the -r, in order to remove that directory. Again, all of this can really be done with Finder, so perhaps removing folders and files and creating folders and files aren't that important for you, but what's very important is printing the working directory and being able to change directories from the terminal. The reason we want to be able to do this is because we'll later create C++ files and we'll want to be able to compile them from the terminal. Before we can run a C++ program, we need to be able to create C++ programs. That is, we need to be able to use a text editor to create and edit files. and save them with whatever extensions we want. A simple text editor that comes already installed on a Mac is TextEdit. We can use Spotlight to search for this program and open it. Let's create a new file. We could theoretically write our program inside here. The reason we don't use TextEdit to write programs is because it lacks advanced features such as syntax highlighting, seen in many other modern editors. So instead of using TextEdit, we will use Sublime Text to write our C++ programs. To download the Sublime Text Editor software, let's go to the Sublime website. Click the Download tab. Under Sublime Text 3, look at the download options and find the option for OSX. Notice that the DMG file to install Sublime Text has been downloaded. Open this in Finder and click on it to begin the installation of Sublime Text. Similar to installing any other Mac program, we simply need to drag the program's icon into our Applications folder. We can then open our Applications folder to confirm that Sublime Text installed correctly. Double-click the Sublime Text icon to open the software. Notice that a dialog may appear asking you whether you trust the application. Go ahead and open the application. We have now installed the Sublime Text Editor. Later in this video, we'll write our first C++ program in this editor. To run a C++ program, we must first install a compiler. A compiler takes an English-written C++ file and converts it to binary, to a file that the computer can run and execute. In the diagram, compiling is done in the second step. We compile using the terminal when we run the g++ command. G++ is really simple to install on a Mac. Simply open your terminal and type G++ and hit enter. A pop-up appears allowing you to install. Agree to the license and complete the installation. To confirm your installation was successful, simply type G++ into the terminal. You should see an error from Clang saying no input files. G++ is now successfully installed, and we will later be able to use it to compile programs. Let's begin writing our first C++ program. Let's open Sublime Text so that we can write our code. Let's create a folder, in this case on the desktop, to save our code. Before I begin writing my code, I'm going to save the file to the correct location. Let me navigate to my desktop, to this engineering folder, and the demo folder. I will save my file as a program.cpp file. This is simply the name of the program, and it can have any name, as long as it ends in a .cpp extension. Let's now begin actually writing the code. Every C++ program will begin with these two lines, an include statement for the IOStream library and the using namespace std line. These two lines essentially allow us to import the correct libraries and work with functions that allow us to read and write data to the terminal. The syntax for these lines are fairly tricky, and we won't really explain it in depth until later on. After the include statements, we'll write our first main function. Every C++ program has a main function. The main function is where a program begins. So as soon as I execute this program from the terminal, my code will begin to execute from this main. To be specific, whatever I write here in line 6 is what my program will execute first. In this case, I want to print out the text "Hello World" to the terminal. Now, let's open the terminal to be able to compile and then run our program. Note, I want to ensure that I'm in the correct directory as this program. So let's navigate to our desktop, and then navigate to the Engineering 101 folder, and then to this demo folder. If we list the files in the demo folder, we can confirm that program.cpp is in here. Let us go ahead and compile the program. Note we get an error. If we go back to Sublime, we notice that there's a circle around our file, indicating that the file has actually not been saved. So what we compiled here in the terminal was an empty blank file which did not have a main function, which is the cause of the error. So if we go back to Sublime and save our file, we notice that the circle goes away, indicating the file is completely saved. In the terminal, we can go ahead and recompile our program. Note we get no error. If we list the files in this directory, you notice there is now an a.out file. This is the executable file generated by the G++ compiler. We can go ahead and execute this program, this binary file, the a.out file, if we type in // and then the executable file name. After hitting enter, you notice that the text "Hello World" appears in the terminal. This is the text that matches what we wrote in our program.cpp file. We can go ahead and change the text in this file. Let's go ahead and rerun the executable in the terminal. Note that "Hello World" is still printed. We might ask ourselves, why is this the case? If we go back to Sublime, we notice that the file has a little circle next to its icon, indicating that indeed it was not saved. So let's go ahead and save the file again. Perhaps we expect when we rerun it in the terminal, it will now print the correct text, "Hello Proxima B." When we actually run it, we notice this is not the case. The problem is that we never recompiled the program. We modified the CPP file, but we never recompiled it, changing the a.out file. So we can go ahead and recompile the program.cpp file. If we then run the a.out file that is now regenerated, it now prints out "Hello Proxima B." So remember, if you change things in your Sublime Text Editor or any editor in general, make sure to save the file. If you do make changes, make sure you also recompile the program using the G++ command.